Russia and Ukraine share centuries of history, language, and family ties. After the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, Ukraine became independent and began choosing its own political and economic course. Those choices, toward Europe, toward NATO, or toward neutrality, would become the core of a geopolitical struggle that erupted into full-scale war in 2022. In late 2013, mass protests known as Euromaidan began after Ukraine's president rejected an EU agreement. He fled in February 2014, and a new government took office. Within weeks, Russian forces seized Crimea, a fast-track referendum was held, and Russia signed a treaty to annex the peninsula on March 18, 2014. A move condemned by most of the world. In eastern Ukraine's Donbas, Russia-backed separatists declared republics, sparking a grinding war. Two ceasefire deals, the Minsk agreements in 2014 and 2015, froze but never resolved the conflict. From Moscow's perspective, NATO expansion eastward eroded Russian security. In December 2021, Russia publicly tabled draft treaties demanding no NATO membership for Ukraine and a rollback of NATO forces in Eastern Europe. The US and NATO said core demands were unacceptable, offering dialogue on arms control instead. Russian forces massed around Ukraine. On February 21, 2022, President Vladimir Putin recognized the so-called Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics. In a national address on February 24, he announced a special military operation, framing it as the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, language rejected internationally. The UN General Assembly voted overwhelmingly on March 2, 2022, to demand Russia end its invasion and withdrawal. Western governments imposed sweeping sanctions and began supplying Ukraine with weapons, intelligence, and economic aid. NATO reinforced its eastern flank and condemned Russia's subsequent attempt to annex 4 additional Ukrainian regions in September 2022. Analysts point to interlocking motives. 1. Control over Ukraine's strategic orientation, blocking its deeper integration with NATO and the EU. 2. Leverage from the unresolved Donbas conflict after the Minsk process stalled. 3. Domestic and historical narratives in Russia, where leaders argue Ukraine belongs in a Russian world. 4. Coercive diplomacy. Moscow's December 2021 ultimatum failed to secure security guarantees, and the invasion became the chosen instrument to force outcomes on borders, neutrality, and Ukraine's sovereignty. These aims were articulated in part through Russia's own official rhetoric about demilitarization, denazification, and protecting people in Donbas, claims disputed by Ukraine and most of the international community. Internationally, the invasion is widely viewed as a violation of the UN Charter's prohibition on the use of force. It also shattered the spirit of the 1994 Budapest Memorandum, under which Russia, the US, and the UK pledged to respect Ukraine's independence and borders when Kyiv gave up the world's third-largest nuclear arsenal. The war unleashed a vast humanitarian crisis, millions displaced, thousands of civilian casualties, and reshaped global security. A newly energized NATO, record defense spending in Europe, energy and grain market shocks, and a long war of attrition whose front lines have shifted over time. As of August 2025, diplomacy continues, but a comprehensive peace remains elusive. Russia insists on territorial concessions and Ukrainian neutrality. Ukraine demands full sovereignty, justice, and credible security guarantees. The stakes for Ukraine, for Europe, and for the global order remain enormous. Why did Russia invade Ukraine? To force geopolitical outcomes it could not secure through negotiation. curbing Ukraine's sovereignty and westward path, rewriting Europe's security map, and cementing influence over a key neighbor. The war's end and the terms will shape European security for a generation. If you want to understand more pivotal moments in history, subscribe and join us for the next story that shaped our world.